This right here is actually a picture of what they think is female with arms raised, legs splayed, and possibly giving birth to the bulls below her. So now we're going to get into some of our first controversy, right? This
That's
is,
actually really cool.
thank you. Hi, Grace. Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. So also, let's also, if I can return for a second to this, what's really cool about this and about this idea of this ancient civilization versus, well, wasn't there always slavery? Wasn't there always like pain upon death? Wasn't there always, brutality, the whole caveman dragging cave woman kind of thing? And this is where it's so mind-blowingly different because it looks like Shadal Hayak was made in a valley. It wasn't made on a hill. It takes away the idea of there being some kind of wartime or a reason to protect oneself. There's no fortifications around this place, no reason to protect your people from invading forces. There's no imagery of human sacrifice, of rape, of any of this kind of like human violence we associate with the ancient world. And so it really was this. Oh, and then the other big one, when we look at the graves, which we're about to talk about in a minute, there are no graves of kingship and dramatized wealth. That we don't have that for another few thousand years, where like a king or a chieftain is buried with his wife and buried with his all of his riches and his horse and all that kind of stuff. That is way later. There is no evidence of that. So the idea of these male dominated hierarchies, there's no evidence. The archaeological record is totally female centric. And even in what they consider the main sanctuaries of this place, what they found in the center of the sanctuary was a red painted floor, might have been a birthing center, and an oven. I don't know about you, but baking bread is pretty special and sacred and spiritual experience for me. I love bread, even though I don't need to eat it as much as I used to or would like to. Okay, so let's go back. So it's really cool to be examining this place that has the first settlement on earth that doesn't have, like, it's not a castle, it's not like a fortress, it's not something you would expect, it's not a cave either, right? So now we've got taking a look at these two images, both found at Shadal Hayak. This is called both fairly small. This is called a seal stamp, meaning it's kind of like a stamp of clay. This is a bas relief, meaning it was against the wall. And we think this is female, and we see this as a bear. One of the things they have a lot in common: widespread lower legs, and then also like maybe is this a sexual portal, right? The other big thing they both have is lines or circles around the belly button. The belly button is this really amazing. This is where this argument that Shadal Hayak was probably matrilineal. That's what James Mellart thought. That means it passes by names, or not necessarily names, but just families pass on through the mother line. And our belly buttons are the umbilical cord scar that we get from our mother's bodies, leaving our mother's bodies, right? So there are so that it's kind of fascinating to link these two things together. We're going to see throughout prehistoric or ancient art, when you have the arms raised, that's called an orant pose, associated with prayer, blessings, and protection. We know that bears, and there's more bear imagery to come, I'm only going to show you one more, are very protective mothers. Also, all mammals have belly buttons. But if we remember, we talked a lot about like bears are one of the few mammals, like humans, where look at that mother and her cubs, right? We all have heard stories about bears, and you do not mess with those cubs, right? You don't even look at those cubs if you see them coming, right? You turn and go the other way, right? Because bear mothers are the most protective and fierce of all mothers. So again, it has this idea about maybe it's not just, oh, protect me during childbirth, but maybe it's also blessings, religion in general, right? So this idea then of the belly button and the splayed legs and the raised arms and the lines around the belly button, this shows maybe there are similar messages between the two. but some scholars didn't like this very much. I'm going to get into this um, in a minute. And now for the piece de resistance. To this day, bears and felines are associated with shamans. So possibly the enthroned woman between the two felines could have represented a female shaman as a protective ancestral mother. And it's like this might have been, maybe this was a representation of someone's mother or something that became like a matriarch or the woman in charge of a family, right? And in a similar way, the bear seal and the relief signify a linkage to animals and humans as part of the shamanic realm, a third space, like I was mentioning a minute ago. So such images suggest an intimate kinship between woman and animal, right? This also begs the question,